So
you can see yourself on the screen.
Famous last words.
You can see yourself on the screen.
Good, that's better.
This.
That's better, thank you. Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, that's a,
Good. Good evening and welcome. Welcome to our first public meeting since March of 2020 in person. So we're so happy to be able to do this. So happy to see so many happy smiling faces in the audience here. And we're hoping that we can keep continuing to do this for quite a long time in the future. So thank you. Apologies for being late. We're still figuring out where the building is and things like that. So we were in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss 3 personnel related and 1 legal related matter. I also want to make an announcement that if you are here this evening for item 15.1, which is the hearing to consider possible license revocation or suspension, that is now being held on July 12th. So if you're here for that this evening, we're not going to take comments on that until July 12th, but by all means, please come on July 12th because we want to hear from everybody. So with that, I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Nease, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Non,
Present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lycap,
here.
Mr. Russo,
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your solicitor, engineer, and manager are here, and so is, I was gonna say your special counsel is what he's leaving, so.
Qualify what that's being postponed. Waiting for people to get back to issues.
That's fine.
People know.
If you want to go ahead. If you want
I just want to let everybody know the reason why we're pushing the item 15 off is because our attorney, Mr. Sikora, is waiting to get feedback from residents about the problems, and I believe he only was contacted by 1 or 2 residents, and supposedly there's numerous residents that have issues. So we're trying to get all the information. So Mr. Sikora is available. He can be reached via the township and give the information.
Thank you. Again, remind everybody that unlike our previous meetings prior to COVID, this meeting is being recorded on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it. And again, keep that in mind when you're giving comment and things like that. So we are live. With that, I'd like to move on to a moment of silence. For a moment of silence this evening, I'd like to remember 2 families in our prayers. One, the Beltrante family, and the second one, the Willanen family. So if we could please keep both those families in our prayers this evening. Thank you. Everyone, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is approving the agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap to approve this evening agenda. Any other questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have public comment for agenda items. If you have a comment on an item on the agenda, please raise your hand, step forward, state your name and address for a record, and be heard. Again, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Be heard.
Cindy Mahalo, 87. Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run. Is this the time to make comment on the agenda items later in the meeting about the pop-up garden and the Keystone 10 million trees?
Now, why don't we reserve comments for them later on?
Okay.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay. If there's no other comment, we will move on to the minutes. We had the opportunity to review the minutes from our May 28, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 24th, 2021.
May 28th, 2021.
May 28th, 2021. The minutes say May 24th, but I guess we will.
The agenda says May 28th, unless I'm looking at the wrong agenda. I don't know.
As it says.
All right, that's fine. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap to approve the minutes from our previous meeting. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation from Patrolman Anthony Kyne regarding a potential canine officer. Go ahead.
Thank you. Those of you who don't know, my name is Anthony Kyne. I'm a patrolman here. I'm on my 4th year. Just want to thank you for taking the opportunity to view my presentation. The purpose of this proposal is to reintroduce the K9 program to the Newtown Township Police Department using the explosive detection and tracking K9. The K9 will be cross-trained to track missing and endangered persons that may come with our vast population. In addition, the K9 would be available to track and apprehend all persons who engage in criminal activity. The final and most important attribute to this program is to bolster our strong police and community relationship. Proactive public relations, such as extensive school checks, parking walks, and weekly business sweeps with my K9 partner will ensure the relationship with the community continues to grow in a positive manner. Having a police K9 team perform demonstrations and educational events the schools and community will naturally bolster the positive relationship the Newtown Township Police Department already has with its community. I know I've touched on some of the purposes in my introduction, but just to get into more detail, I would conduct sweeps for explosive detection at any dwelling within the township. Marble Newtown School District, Episcopal Academy, AmeriHealth, and Mainline Health have given me permission by welcoming myself and my K9 partner into their respective dwellings. As you know, we have Aronimink Country Club. We have the best golfers in the world that come to our facilities every few years. We've always relied on outside agencies to come in and do explosive detection sweeps, tracking, just to make sure everything's okay. It's nice that we would be able to provide that service and not rely on other agencies. Principal James Wygo from Culbertson Elementary has asked for demonstrations and presentations for his students in the near future. Post images on our social media account. I know we have the Marble Newtown magazine. I thought 1 month we can get 100 little kids from Culbertson, myself and my K9 partner, and put it on the cover. I just thought that would be great for the community. Now, I've looked at some schools and I felt the Penn Vet Working Dog Center was my choice. A lot of people around the area go to Shallow Creeks. It's a 6-week program, but Penn, their obedience school, is 12 weeks, twice as long as their entire program. That's every September. The patrol school, which consists of tracking, obedience, agility, article search, handler protection, tracking, and building search. Again, that's every September and it's 12 weeks. And the explosive detection school is every March and it's an 8-week program. Policies and procedures of the K9 program would meet all standards set forth by CALEA. As far as procedures, the K9 handler position is a voluntary proposed position to the Chief of Police, authorized by the Chief of Police upon approval by the Board of Supervisors. The K9 handler, myself, as a sworn officer in Newtown Township, holds no significant disciplinary record, willing to remain on the K9 unit for 5 years, and willing to house the K9 on a 24-hour basis. Again, I'm still shopping around for veterinary insurance, but I really like Penn. They offer full service. It's only 12 miles away, and they are one of the best 10 veterinary, or one of the best vet hospitals in the entire country. I would acquire a new police vehicle, and it will be equipped to the canine accreditation standards. I know I briefly touched on housing and maintenance, but the dog would live with me 24/7. I would take responsibility for the welfare of the dog, live in a suitable environment, schedule all veterinary needs, clean room, what any dog needs. All donations acquired will go through, will be for medical needs, training, equipment, food, or emergencies. As far as selection, I've been in touch with Bob Doherty. He is the master trainer at Penn University. He wants to come with me and select a dog. I let him know my number one priority of selecting a dog is I need to be able to bring that dog into a school to interact with children. Again, it'll be able to apprehend, track, detect bombs, but I let him know that's my number one priority, bringing him into a school, being social with the children, and so he's fully aware of that. As far as fundraising, Steve Spader, the Senior Vice President, Acquisitions and Development of Equus Capital, has put together a team of Brian Holloway from GMH, Timothy Irvine from Creative Financial in Mac Catania. They've agreed to organize a campaign to help me raise the money. Jeff Hilliard, who's also a resident, suggested a beef and beer in the future to raise money. Steve Vidian, resident and business owner, has agreed to pay for half of my training. All the officers have donated $10 to $20 of their own money to show support for this program. Total cost, startup cost, approximately $81,000. Again, to keep it going for at least 5 years, my goal is to raise $125,000. In conclusion, my goal was to attend a 12-week patrol school in September, followed by the explosive detection school in March 2022. There are currently no police canines in Sector 2, which includes Newtown, Marple, Upper Prov, Springfield, Morton, Swarthmore, Media, and Nether. I'd be proud to serve the Newtown Township community as the only canine handler in the sector. Any questions?
Board members, any questions?
Yeah, Anthony, if, just the last piece, the conclusion. So if we did go into the other townships, you see that this will be, that they will reimburse Newtown for the cost?
If I'm working, or is that like
If you're working?
No, if I'm working patrol, say Upper Providence gets called for it just happened last month when I was working, they had a 4-year-old run away. They were looking for dogs in the area. Sector 2 doesn't have any dogs. Since it's on my time, no, I wouldn't be reimbursed.
When you're called out to the other township, you're being paid.
I'm still on my time, yes.
This time, he's not being paid.
Oh, you're not being paid?
He's on his time.
No.
There we go. Chris,
Yeah, Chris, maybe you should clarify this.
That would fall under our mutual aid agreement. So just like officers from other towns come in to help us when we need help, we also go into the surrounding townships to help them when they need help.
is that, Chris, since you're there, is that going to create a problem for staffing? I mean, if we have a K-9 unit and our officers being called out to other towns, is that going to affect our ability to police our own town?
No, because Newtown always comes first. We can't provide coverage here. We can't assist there.
Well, kind of to piggyback off of Ed's question, since we have a school resource officer, would we also with the school district? So the K-9 and Anthony would be our actually school resource officer when he goes to the schools to demonstrate. I mean, I'm thinking just as a fundraiser as well to, as like the Episcopal Academy and some of the other private schools to maybe ask for a donation in that way, because they don't pay taxes. So I'm thinking that may be a way to raise money for this program as well.
It's a good idea. Officer Kyne's first looking for approval from the board for the program.
Oh, yeah. You did a great job, by the way, on your presentation.
I'm going to reach out to these private businesses and ask for money without approval.
Right.
So
Right.
so
No,
that's
I
why I've been in touch
understand.
with Mr. Spader. He put a budget together of a couple of opt outings, one with business owners little bit more pricey, and then one more like open to the public.
Mhm.
Those are just ideas that they threw
Yeah.
out.
No, I understand.
What kind of vehicle do you need? The same kind of vehicle we have in Explorer for this dog or vehicle?
Again, we don't have a canine policy, but I mean, we all drive Ford Explorers, so I would imagine.
But it'd be singular in his truck for the dog because he has to drive the dog around. So it doesn't change between other officers. It's strictly his vehicle, Chris.
Yes, it will be equipped for the canine. There's a special cage that goes in the back passenger compartment for that.
Just like our previous
Previous canine, right?
K-9 unit, right? All right, let me get some clarification on the costs. Are you trying to raise money for all the costs that you've listed here? Or is there a cost to the township that we have to budget for next year for this, or?
No, the cost will be, no, it won't cost the township. All the money raised will be through donations and fundraising efforts.
Outstanding.
Is that every year?
Now, the 81,000 startup cost, and I would probably say approximately $5,000 to $6,000 a year after that. That's why I made the goal 125 to keep it going for 5 years.
Got it.
And then at some point, we might have to pick up, it doesn't sound like it's a very expensive cost.
Yeah.
The previous canine, I guess this is for Chris, yeah, with Jeff, did we fund part of that? Or
That was all through donations.
All donations?
Steve, do we need any type of formal or just a nod of the heads that we like this? Do we need a formal?
Well, I
resolution,
think because this is, there's two things that are happening. One is we're authorizing donations for that purpose. I would probably take an actual vote just
Okay.
because you're going to have money coming in. So you're accepting donations, and also because then expenses would be going out. And any donation is given for this purpose. So if by chance they were to raise 150,000, it would be limited to spending on the K-9 unit. You couldn't spend it on something else. So I think it's important that the board take action based on that.
So we just need a motion. We probably need lights in the back of the.
Yeah, somebody's got to do the wave.
We need donations for the lights too.
I'd like to make a motion that we support the addition of a K-9 unit to Newtown Square based upon Officer Kyne's presentation, and that we support him in, I guess, approving him to fundraise for this dog.
Second that.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to endorse the K-9 proposal presented by Officer Kyne and add a K-9 officer to our staff. That'd be great. Any other questions on this motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Excellent idea. I missed our own K-9. Glad you're willing to do it again, man.
Thanks, Ed.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Nice job, sir. Thank you.
Nice job, man. Thank you.
Good job.
Good seeing you again.
That's great.
Okay.
Mr. Nease,
Rest of the meeting.
next on the agenda, we have reports.
I do. Before I jump into my report, I'm going to defer to Eileen for a moment to talk about the walk around that was done at BPG today related to the stormwater that has been a question, mostly relating to the soil erosion that happened over the storm on Tuesday. There was a rainstorm last week. I was unaware of what day it was. I apologize.
Eighth, it was on the 8th. Tuesday the 8th.
Definitely on the 8th.
But
Go ahead, Eileen.
if Eileen could share, there were several of us there this morning, but Eileen was there for the entire time. So if she could share kind of the initial results, and then we go from there.
In response to concerns, I called the Conservation District so that we could arrange a meeting for both to have eyes on the whole site. And in the process, members of the EAC, Stephen, the design engineer, and the developer were all present at the start of the meeting for safety reasons, because it is an active construction site. The majority of us walked the perimeter, take a look and discuss and review plans. As we did, we found several items along Charles Ellis and Westchester Pike, fairly minor in nature, but still, everything accumulate. So we took note of all of those. And the major concerns were down a long winding way and the functioning of the sediment basin. All the controls were in according to plan. They have not yet installed a swale that will divert some of the site runoff into that basin because they had to install some storm sewer prior to that. That was expected to be completed today. Once they get that swale graded, they'll have it matted along with the rest of the basin itself. At that point, we decided that I think members of the EAC and Stephen had to leave anyway, so the rest of us took the walk through the rest of the site and noted a few other things. The pump station has been continually used by almost everyone as a staging area. That will require a rock construction entrance to be placed on that site. That they have to submit a plan for. We walked the remainder of the site and there were some minor comments related to some stabilization and getting the haul roads up to grade so that they can stone them and have them work to cut down traffic on the other streets. But all in all, no major issues were found. There has been photographic evidence provided by the contractor of the basin very quickly filling up, but no overflows. It basically did its job. And the Conservation District is going to be completing their own separate report. When I get that together, that will be all put together for the township to have a comprehensive report on the whole matter. We were also provided some rainfall data. And while I was out in it, and I believe the numbers, they were still kind of staggering that approximately 3 inches fell in a little more than a half an hour that afternoon, which was followed by another cloud burst later that evening. But if anybody has any questions?
What about making sure they turn the truck dead? They're still tracking dirt on the roads.
They do have the sweeper working.
Right, but I'm saying turn the track pads, because there's a lot of dirt work. So they have a tracking pad, but after, you know, I don't know how much time, but it's a lot of wet mud, the pad needs to be turned. I
Yeah.
don't think they're doing that.
The rock construction entrances
Yes,
need
correct.
to be, that was one of the items today, that they need to be refurbished. And where the radii, trucks are turning off and dropping down in, they need the stone on those corners as well. So yes, that was all noted.
I think that's one of the, I don't know if that's a major problem, but it would definitely help improve.
I think from the storms the other day, the greatest problem was down along Winding Way, that swale not being in place. The runoff was so great that it did wash into Winding Way.
Are they still watering down that site every day?
Yes,
Every day?
not every day, not when it rains.
No.
The days that it doesn't rain, they have a water truck on site, and
What are they? I mean,
I have
It's
not
like me having a
personally
fire
watched
extinguisher,
it
right.
happen, but I know that our inspectors have pointed it out every time because
We
we've been
need to do a better
providing them
job
pictures.
of making sure they water that down and keep it wet because, you know, obviously we see the dust clouds.
Mhm. There was one stockpile that miraculously was growing a good bit of grass, so I was happy to see that. That's the topsoil that they have for redistribution later.
So Eileen, and I don't know if you can answer this until you get the report from the Conservation District, but based off of the site visit that you had today, and based off of some of the video footage that we all were provided from the EAC, or remember the EAC, there was not a breach of the
No.
stormwater
There
facility?
was no.
So the stormwater facility as it was designed actually held up, or?
Right now, it's functioning as a sediment facility, sediment removal facility. And that's why they have what's called baffles in the basin itself. That is designed to increase the length that water has to flow so that the sediment drops out. And then when it gets to the discharge point, there's even what's called a fair cloth skimmer that works to continue to filter whatever discharge goes into the outlet structure.
And that's all working.
Yes.
So and you said this to me, so this is why I'm trying to pull this out so the residents who are watching this either now or later on can get the same information. Brown water doesn't always necessarily mean that it's a sediment discharge.
Correct. There are some discoloration in water that actually it becomes part of the water. There's no way for it. They're just so fine material. It doesn't settle out. It doesn't drop out. It remains suspended in the water.
Okay. And so we did not see any evidence that there was a sediment discharge going into Fox's Run that would then eventually go into the rear pond over there.
Nothing from the site of any substance, not from the basin itself. There may have been some minor discharges, as I mentioned, without the swale in place, hopping over Winding Way and skirting some things. But the majority of the site drains to this facility and it did not breach.
Okay. And then let me answer this question because this is something that we see a lot about. And I don't know how much truth there is to this. I believe that there's probably not that much, but it's just a misconception that's out there. Our stormwater ordinance, my understanding, being a zoning and land use attorney, is that we have the state standard, which is essentially the floor, and then we have our ordinance, which has gone above that. There's a misconception out there or a belief that our ordinance is not as strong as other municipalities, or it's just extremely lackadaisical. That actually is not the case, though, is it?
It's so funny that I hear that when I hear complaints all the time about people not wanting me to enforce ordinances for their projects. Anyway.
They're individual projects,
They're individual projects.
residential
Yes,
projects,
yes,
because the residential projects are held to the same standard as our developers are.
the ordinance is the ordinance.
And so back to my original question on the ordinance, I think I cut you off, but you're about to say something.
I have not reviewed every adjoining municipality's ordinance, but I know that when we were approached by DEP about enacting the ordinance that we have in place in 2013, it was considered a model ordinance that we had some ability to tailor to the municipality, and there were some decisions made in the adoption of the ordinance, but it is not lax by any standard and meets more than the minimum of the state's requirements for the MS4 program.
Okay. I believe that is all the questions that I had, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you to the EAC members that went out today.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Arlene. Steve, would you continue with your report?
Yeah, so a couple quick things that aren't on the agenda. I do want to let you know the 2 police cars that we ordered have been come into the Ford dealer, have been painted, and have now been, one of them is now sitting down, getting the security, all the interior put in. There's
The cop stuff.
all the cop stuff, the lights and all of that good stuff. We're in line. I don't know how long that will take. The other one, I think, is also down there, but it's once they get the one done, they'll let us know and we can come down and get it, and then they'll start the second one. The 750 is rolling along. We now have a VIN number for it. So been told that it should be done in time to get to us, and they'll get it over to the body group, not the body group, but the group that
The outfitter.
for all of the stuff that goes on the back end of it and all of that. So that's moving
All the
forward.
public works stuff.
The
The public works
So all the
stuff.
public works stuff. We got the
Yeah.
cop stuff and the public works stuff, and I'm just thankful that all the stuff is there. I know we've had some problems over the last couple of weeks with some recycling pickup. I don't know if you've heard that, but some residents have called and been concerned. George has been talking JP Mascara. They actually have a new general manager who's kind of been brought on. He's been there since January. He's aware of the problem. They also, in our township, I think we end up with 3 new drivers as well. I guess they've had some turnover. So we are working through that, making sure they understand what the routes are, getting us back to where it needs to be. So they are working hard to get us back to what that's supposed to be. They've committed to making that adjustment.
Let me ask you a question on that. So there are some residents who were skipped for 2 weeks, right? And so they call JP Mascaro and they get no response. They get, it's either continuously ringing or they just get a voicemail. They call the township tells them to call JP Mascaro. So now we have some residents that have been out for 2 weeks, or I guess it would be a month, right? 2 pickups, they haven't had anything done because we have biweekly recycling. So in situations like that, what can we tell these residents? Because I get it. I mean, and George and I have been in contact about, some of them were coming late, and I did know that there were new drivers, but there's other neighborhoods that have been completely missed, and they've been missed, 2 cycles in a row. So what is?
I was not aware that there was neighborhoods missed 2 cycles in a row. So I will go back with George and talk about that. One of the things for sure, anytime somebody has excess or for some reason is missed, there's always the option to bring it here to the township and we will take care of it. So
but I'm thinking of like little Mrs. Sue who's 90 in her house isn't going to lug that here.
Yeah, I understand that not everybody can do that. Please have them reach out to George. I hate to add to his plate, but that's where it needs to go.
So you just need to provide a better answer. If Mascaro's not picking up the phone.
Yeah, if Mascaro's not picking up the phone, I need to know that so that we can hold them accountable to make sure that gets done.
Because they should come right back out again.
They should come
They
back.
should be out the next day. Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're not coming
So,
that
I
day.
mean, it's particularly if we've got places that have been missed.
So we have recycling on Thursday. So when I start getting my emails blowing up, do I tell them to just keep the recycling out until Friday?
Please tell them to hold it out, yes, because my understanding is that when there's been 2 issues. One is the drivers are new, and 2 is I think my understanding, there's also the amount of collection has been greater, and they're not getting through it every time. So make sure that if it's, just go ahead and leave it out through Friday, and to make sure they call the township and give us the list. And I will make sure that we take the list and submit it to Mascara of what needs to be picked up.
Perfect.
Because I can speak from experience, George has done that.
Yeah.
When our section has been missed, he says, just leave it out, and the truck came the next day, or they were running late that night, so they had to come out the next day.
Yeah.
So if you just let them know.
But I do need to know so that we can follow up on it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Just for comment, I know that some may have been thinking that we were going to be discussing the historic preservation ordinance. That is going to, I understand that the group is meeting on that and they're still reviewing it, and it will not be on the 28th as we originally had talked about. And I do not know the exact date, but it is being reviewed by the Historic Commission, by I know the solicitors involved, and I also know some of
We have some more work to do.
some more work to do.
I thought that I know we got a Sixers game coming up, but I thought that there was discussion today that the Planning Commission will be able to get it for next Thursday, and that we will be potentially having it on the 28th, Mr. Solicitor.
Yeah, Mr. Sikora was preparing a draft today, which I think he made a lot of headway on. And he thinks he can get it to planning by Thursday, which would give them a week to review.
Which they asked for. They asked for.
They asked for a week. And
Yeah,
we still have a
my challenge is
the
that
advertising?
based on the information I had, I pulled it from the county for their review. So the county will not be able to review it until next month.
And one of the concerns of our planning commission was that we had not, as the township, notified the properties that would be affected by this. And I think we need to do that on official township stationery in a letter that says, hey, by the way. So I don't want to rush this in through the planning commission without at least that was a concern of the planning commission.
That was my understanding. And so
I would like to at least get that done.
Based on that information is why I pulled it from the county's
Right.
website. I mean, from the county's planning.
So if we're not going to hear it at the next meeting, can we at least get a timeline? What going forward is then?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if Mr. Sikora has worked out some of the issues, let's get a timeline established that when we're going to notify people, when to go back to planning commission, and then we can take it from there. Because I think the board is still committed to getting this passed. We just want to make sure that we get everybody on board.
Yep, great. I believe I made you all aware, and maybe I haven't, but if you haven't been made aware, the county is putting in their own health department in 2022, and it's supposed to start in January. And you may say, "What? That's fine." There is this whole question of how that impacts based on our ordinance My understanding is that all health inspections will be done at the county level going forward, and that's not an option. The state requirement is if you have a county health department, it is all done at that level. And so as part of that, the county has sent us a letter requesting that we meet with them as an individual municipality and go over what our requirements are and what that would look like with them. We can handle that as staff, but I also didn't know if a board member or two would be interested in serving or being a part of that meeting. And if you are, if you'll just let me know what direction I need to go.
I think I'm getting the reaction from the board that we're okay with let staff handling that. I mean,
Okay, that's fine.
you know,
I just wanted to make sure that, you know, if there were board members that were interested, we.
I mean, we want to make sure we're still conducting our inspections, that we still have our health inspector until such time as, and you'll let us know if that's not needed anymore. But for now, we want to make sure we're still running our health inspections.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Quick issue that came up, there was a pretty severe accident that happened a couple weeks ago at Hidden Spring Circle. It's over off of Malin Road, if I say that right.
Malin and Bryn Mawr
And
Avenue.
Bryn Mawr Avenue. A young driver actually had turned wrong because of a GPS. The GPS said go straight across. The driver went straight across and didn't stop. There was not a stop sign there in the cul-de-sac. There's 7 homes, and the driver got broadsided. So we were looking at that, and were made aware of that by Radnor Police, who had responded to the accident. We may want to consider putting a stop sign there if the township is, if this board is okay. We would move forward with.
Stop sign on Malin Road?
No, on
Hidden.
Hidden Spring
Oh, there's not
Circle.
one there now? I'm
There's
really
not one there
surprised.
now.
I think that, I mean,
Yeah.
MUTCD would allow that. I think that's fine.
Yeah, and so if you're okay with that, we'll go ahead and get it installed and then get it on the next ordinance.
As long as we get all the ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised because coming down Malin Road, you pick up speed
Yeah.
on that one section.
But
I'm
but
really
it's a
sur-
small cul-de-sac, I think, like, and typically people know you're supposed to stop, but.
The
and
law
not-
says you're supposed to stop anyhow, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is just one of those things that,
Right,
I
especially if you're
know,
not
you pick
familiar
up
with the area.
speed, oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
have to tell you that we've become so dependent upon, some people become so dependent upon navigation systems that they do whatever it says.
And
so
they end
that's
up in
one
a
of the-
field, that's what I thought you were gonna
Yeah.
say, that they ended up like in the
Or a
creek or
pond,
something.
So
or
I just wanted
stream,
to
yeah.
do that. I'll keep that moving. Street sweeper is back. It was out today. I will tell you, it goes into the shop tomorrow to be inspected.
Come on,
It has to have state inspection done, but it'll be back. I know, but it'll be back Wednesday. And, but we did have it out all day today, and we'll have it back Wednesday and going again.
We're running that thing 24/7.
Well, not quite 24/7, but full
You
day.
got the idea.
The first of the speed tables was installed today. A second one will be installed on Echo Valley Lane. That leaves us 2 to be installed somewhere else in the township.
Sawmill.
And if everybody's okay, we will
Sawmill.
do 2 of those on Sawmill. It's, we're not 100% sure where we'll do those based on the fact that there's only 2, but we'll do Sawmill.
Does everybody on the board understand the complexity of these? I mean, I think there's some thinking that we just dump them on the street and throw them down, and maybe some
57
explanation about the complexity, Steve, might be in order.
Sure. So each one of these speed tables is about 60 pieces. And so, and they range in weight up to 80 pounds apiece. So they're not lightweights to be thrown around, although our guys, I have to say, I was watching them pick them up and move them. They do a very nice job of making it look like lightweight.
Not Joe though, right?
Huh?
Not Joe though.
So they were out today doing it, and on that one, it really, I was there at about 9:15 this morning, watching and seeing what was going on. They were about halfway of laying it down, but they had not even put the bolts in yet. Now, they've been going since 6 in the morning when they got here, and it did take them the full rest of the day to get all the bolts down. One of the challenges is they really need to stop the traffic, both directions when they're putting that down, because every time a vehicle goes over, it shifts the speed table while they're working on it, and they have to go back and move the speed table back. Each one of those pieces of the 60, most of them require 3 lag bolts to go into the ground, and each one of those lag bolts is about that deep.
We're
And
not having
so-
any payment left when we're done.
So
Yeah.
it will be Swiss cheese when we take it up. There's also epoxy that goes in every one of those holes that holds the sleeve. And so, and then the bolt gets screwed down into there. This epoxy, they've told me, is setting in about 30 seconds. So by the time they put it in, they have to get the sleeve immediately down in there. And
The glass
so
file, it's in the glass file that you drop in a hole and put the bolt in.
I honestly didn't watch how they did it. but-
That's usually what they do, yeah. That's,
And so.
He was afraid they were going to ask him to stay and help.
Yeah, I was afraid. I had that 9:30 meeting with BPG and it was like, off I went. But
So how
yeah,
do you suggest, because Echo Valley is not as heavily traveled as Sawmill is going to be. So how do you suggest, I guess the police will have to,
I
someone
am
will have to
really
be there?
anticipating that we're going to actually put a hard closure on the road.
okay.
We'll mark that it's closed. We'll notify the neighbors ahead of time. We'll mark that it's closed and put a temporary kind of go this way and around. I will tell you today, they put a hard closure or a soft closure, but they put a closure up. People ignored it.
Yeah.
And they went right by it. And so we're going to have to figure out something, particularly for Sawmill. I was uncomfortable watching them with the number of cars that were going by. While they're down on the ground
Yeah.
working, and they're paying attention to what they're doing, which is what I want them to do. So we're going to have to make sure we have somebody out there potentially stopping traffic, watching traffic, particularly like on Sawmill.
the Sawmill, they'll just come up.
So
and
these,
just-
these are a fairly involved process.
This was an all day
All day.
for one to go in. So it is a very involved process.
And they come out in the wintertime too.
Unfortunately, we
And
got to
they
take them
have
out
to come
before
out in the
12.
winter time. Yes.
How long does it take for, I guess, do we have any idea how long it takes for them to come out?
We were hoping that it takes less time to come out. I mean, you're not having to drill the hole. I mean, they went through 3 drill bits today. At least I know because there was 3 by 12 o'clock. So I know that's part of the issue as well. So the answer is, until we take one up, I don't know that we know. My concern is that you put the epoxy in and if the epoxy hasn't fully hardened before you put the bolt in, has now the bolt become, does it break off or something
Right.
when we come to back it out? So those are the things we don't know yet, but that's what we're
We're
working
probably looking at a road closure again to take them out.
on. We are.
So they're not as easy as we all, I guess.
It wasn't as simple as
misunderstood.
just laying them down
Right.
and calling
You
it
don't
good.
drop it off on a trailer and say goodbye.
Yeah, so, but anyway, the guys did a great job getting the first one in. I'm very excited. They worked real hard at it, and we'll work at getting the other one in tomorrow on Echo Valley. And then probably I will have to do it next week on Sawmill because we're going to want to notify residents ahead of time that we're going to do that.
And our police and our engineer will be monitoring what impact this has and things like that.
Yes,
conducting the studies.
I was told it would be about 45 days before we really knew the full results of having these in place and seeing what the behavior changes are.
And these will then probably be the only installations we put in this year, then I would expect.
I'm guessing this year will be the one and only time down.
Okay.
And then, as we had talked about before, let's assume that these do exactly what we want them to do. And they help bring speeds into reasonable spots for folks. They will, to put a permanent one in is roughly about $15,000 for a permanent one. So even if when we take these 4 up, if you were to agree and say, yes, that we found them all there, I mean, we're looking at,
We'd have to make that
you
part
know,
of our road program.
$60,000 worth of an investment to do that. So, you know, how we put those in and how we use them, really, we need to think through what that looks
But
like.
once we take them out, then we'll have the winter time to see what the studies show and then evaluate
Yeah.
and decide for the spring whether we want to permanently put them in or,
Yeah,
and then we can also decide where we want to try them in the next spots too. then.
but you probably want to put that in your budget for.
Yes, we will.
Budget that here.
So when do you take them out, Steve? When's the estimated time to take them out? They need to be out before the,
We would, so I'm thinking that we're gonna wanna have them out before leaf season starts, because once leaf season starts, all hands are on deck with leaf season. And so we'll probably wanna pull them out before leaf season. We have to have them out before winter, And so that's the challenge.
Or otherwise the plasma will take it out for you, but then
Yeah.
it's not
And
gonna
then
be
it's a
much
waste
worth
of money,
anything. Yeah.
right?
So,
So in the long term, are these even worth the money and the hassle?
Well, I think the benefit, the reason
Because all
why.
winter, there's no traffic control then all winter, right?
Well, not for the, so the long term is putting in the permanent one. The benefit of this is to say, is this the right spot? Did it work? And if it doesn't do what we had hoped it to do, would do, then we may say, you know what, it doesn't make, is this really worth investing $30,000 in this one spot?
Got it.
We can reuse these speed tables throughout the township and test these different spots around the township.
Testing.
That was the idea.
we'll know more once we see the results from the engineer and the police, whether it actually worked or not, then we can make that assessment.
Temporary.
Got it.
Okay, I have four other quick things on my agenda that are on the, or on the agenda itself. The historic preservation ordinance, I think I already talked about. The county health, I actually have talked about two of them. The recycling grant, I actually have a copy of it. We received the recycling grant, and actually I gave it to you, John. I didn't write down the amount. I think it's $356,000.
Hang on. 300, the grant awards, 349,142 of the total 387,936.
So we had to come up with 10%, and so that's what the difference is.
For the special truck.
This is for the special truck that allows us to have leaf / dump / a variety of one-man band. So we did get that grant, which is great news, and we have that. The last thing, John and I met with the fire department as our quarterly meeting, as we do, and they requested a billing ordinance be put into play where they would bill insurance companies when they respond to a fire. And so insurance companies would pay for a certain amount of wear and tear on the equipment and those kind of things. So they're asking for that type of ordinance. What I'm looking for tonight is if you're in agreement, we will have the solicitor work at getting a best practice ordinance put together for your review. But I didn't want to have the solicitor do that until we had talked.
Well, I did a little research on my own, and when I asked the question to other towns and fire companies, they look at me like, what, you don't have one? So I'm beginning to guess that we seem to be in the minority of not having this.
We are.
I think we are.
I'm all for it. If the fire, if this gets the fire company some more money and it comes out of insurance company pocket, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so
I
I
don't
will
want to speak for the rest of the board,
Right,
but
well, they'd have to pay it, they have to pay it anyway, so we may as well get paid back.
Well, let's see what it looks like. You're
Right.
gonna put forth a proposal,
If
right?
you're comfortable with me engaging the solicitor to do that.
yeah, I think we're all good with that. We're good.
Right, okay. All right, I'm going to shut up.
Any questions for Mr. Neese? All right, good. Let's move on. Fund transfer, we have two items. First one, item 11.1, request to transfer $7,162.72 from the escrow fund to the general fund. This money represents money that was deposited in the escrow fund, but was for an invoice associated with the general fund. So moved. Is there a second?
Second,
Motion made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lyckout to approve item 11.1 as read. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This next one is a big one. We like this one. 11.2, request to transfer $729,701.41 from the general fund to the Relief Act Fund. This money represents the first of two payments that is going to be deposited by the state into the general fund from the American Relief Plan. This money is recommended to be segregated in the separate bank account. The dollars have not been deposited to date, but will be deposited by 6/30/21. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve item 11.2. Just so everybody understands, this is our COVID relief funds. Looks like you add the two together, again, about 1.4, 1.5 million, it looks like. So that's a beautiful thing. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.1, payments. Consider approving pay request number 3 in the amount of $5,570.83 to Moore Construction Services for the completed Clearbrook Culvert Replacement Project as approved by the Township Engineer.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 12.1. A question for Eileen. Eileen, is this it? They've done
Yeah,
everything? They've-
all
Oh
done.
my gosh. this
Homeowners
thing's taking
happy that
forever.
that was there? Everybody's good?
They got the landscaping that they requested.
Fantastic. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.2, consider approving the $1,150 escrow release payment to Desiree Tomasco at 3536 Sawmill Road for a completed grading project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve item 12.2. Any questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.3, consider approving the $59.75 escrow release payment to Paul Harris at 66 Farrier Lane for a completed project.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
this is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycett to approve item 12.3. Any questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 13.1, I had the opportunity before this evening's meeting to review the bills on the check register dated today, June 14th, 2021, the amount of $688,753.20. And it is my motion that we approve said bills.
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.1, consider approving escrow release number 1 in the amount of $20,390 to Pereira Construction LLC for the project at 20 Reese Avenue as per the developer's agreement and approval from the township engineer. This would leave a balance of $2,589.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.1. Any questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 15.1 has been tabled until July 12th. Brings us to new business. Item 16.1, discussion about the request of 64 Farrier Lane for pool installation. Is somebody here representing, please step forward, state your name and address for the record and be heard.
Great, thank you. My name is Michael Burke, and I am at 64 Ferry Lane. Thank you very much. So this evening, I am asking for the board's consideration in approving a retaining wall that is part of a pool project, which briefly encroaches on the conservation restriction area found at the center of the property of 64 Ferry Lane. I have submitted some drawings, the township plans, which specifically state the consent that is required to do this. And so I wanted to have this as an opportunity to discuss and answer any questions that may be.
I think we've all seen the plans numerous times. I guess my question is, you can't make the pool smaller?
Yeah, so, we worked with our civil engineer for not only compressing it, but also moving it laterally. The retaining wall that encroaches the easement is really the only piece of the project that is, so for instance, the pool, the patio, the water is above this line over the wall. So even moving the pool sideways, it's really still creating somewhat of a problem around that area in the center of the property. But the real challenge we have is we're trying to be good neighbors. And what we want to do is continue to have privacy. And we lose a lot of that as we move toward the side. So that was the give and take with this project when we worked with the engineer of what are the other alternatives that we face.
Do we have a visual of this? I know there was a map, but can we pull the map up?
Yeah, so I actually have, if you want.
Yeah,
fine.
whatever, because the map I have is very blurry, so.
Encroaching.
So I have two pieces, yeah. So one is, of course, a very, I circled it for you, but then page 2 specifically looks at.
So Eileen, is the
To
one
answer your
line-
question, Mike, I'm not sure if I have the latest plan because my review happened back in February when I raised the issue of the encroachment into the,
On this plan, is that the easement, that bump?
the conservation restriction area. Yes, it does follow
Can the
that line.
conservation restriction area be moved over a little bit?
Not that I'm aware of. It's any encroachment into it is required to have the HOA and the board approve it. That's how it was set up.
It's approximately 12 to 13 feet long, and it moves in about
It's like, it's not.
3 feet.
It may have been based on.
I think it may have been based on contours at one time.
Or a wetland survey or floodplain or something like that. So I'm really reluctant to just say, yeah, it should be straightened out if that really is an area that is to
I'm
be
trying to see what
conserved.
that,
It was
So the green line,
is there a path in there?
Is the easement.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
want
so
to
the green line is the
purple,
easement, the
pink line
pink is
is.
what we're trying to do now. It was from a very late 90s aerial topography study. That was part of the plan. So it was all wooded area when it was drawn.
Have you even gone to the homeowner association yet?
We've been actively talking with them.
But they haven't indicated any approval yet.
They've, with new turnover, have decided to take there's some historical precedent of these in the neighborhood as early as 2019. They want both sides to get a lawyer. There's a letter of indemnification that they want to put in for any of these types of projects.
the historical precedent from 2019, what was that situation?
Yeah, so there was a residence on Ferrier Lane, mid 2019, where it was
64.
a waterway that runs through the bridge. It was the bridge.
Yeah.
And so what is interesting about this is, that was actually a project in the easement inside the 100-year floodplain. This particular project, which is the same technical encroachment, but it's outside of the floodplain and about 200 feet away from the waterway, about 30 vertical feet away from the waterway.
You were, how long have you been in this house?
Approximately 3 years.
You were aware of the easement when you bought the house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, again, I look at this and it's a rectangular pool. If you made it closer to a square, you probably don't need to make an easement there. It's just based on the size of the pool that you need this encroachment. And, I'm just reluctant to allow any encroachment to easement area. I mean, you'd have to rewrite the easement documents, which that costs, as far as I'm concerned, would fall to you. We're not going to do that on the township behalf.
Are
Which
these
size-
are these rock walls there now?
The circles that you see is a boulder wall, yes.
Yeah, I see it on the aerial.
So the unique,
It makes no sense to me either.
the unique aspect is this line, really what it does is it kind of just juts up into the formal lawn and then immediately juts back down to the woodland.
I'm not understanding what this is, because if there's a wall there, there's not like there's water features
Yeah.
up through the
That's
wall.
his house. See, that's those circles.
Yeah.
What's the
Why
size
does
of
the
the
easement go the way it does?
I believe it's 20 by 40,
Why does
which
the
is
easement
kind
go
of
like
the-
that? That doesn't make any sense going in the area.
Right.
Makes no sense, because there's a wall right here, so if you had a water feature or something there, you would have to go through the wall.
When I'm looking at your page 2,
Yeah, no, that doesn't.
I'm looking at your page 2, where it says the existing macadam. Where are the neighbors, to the left or the right? Because you're an engineer, right?
So the existing macadam is the driveway, entrance kind of driveway. We have neighbors on both sides.
Oh, you do have neighbors on both sides.
Yes, sir. And the only option is kind of where it is sort of centered, or pushing it all the way to kind of the bottom of the page that you see, which again puts us very close to it.
Got it. Can I see that aerial? Can I see the aerial?
How much,
Passing this.
I don't know if
That's
you can answer
fine.
this, but in order to avoid the issue, how much would you need to carve off of the 40-foot?
If you made it, instead of a 20 by 40 pool, if you made a 20 by 30 pool, does that take us out of the issue?
Yeah, so part of the challenge was the wall itself would then kind of come up and then have to get scooted over. So the design of the wall kind of creates now like this weird S turn, as opposed to just moving the whole thing over. Again, it's all doable, but what's the kind of natural way you would want a retaining wall to kind of hold all of that?
Well, what I see is, we're looking at an aerial of your property, and the way that easement line is drawn seems to make absolutely no sense whatsoever. I mean, fundamentally, I have a problem with encroaching easement, but at the same time, I don't know why the line is drawn that way. I mean, clearly the easement is defined by the rock wall you have in the back of your yard, not this line on the paper. So I guess the board is having a problem with that particular issue. So I guess, my direction really has been all along when this came up, I want to say 6 months ago, has been, what does the homeowner association want to do? Okay, get them to say, yeah, we have no problem with this, and you guys work out who's paying to redo the easement documents, all that stuff. And then I don't think it becomes an issue for the board. I mean, if the homeowners association says, yes, no problem, well, what would we care? I don't, and you can take this message back to the homeowner association. We don't want to be put in the middle or be the referees for this.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really between you and them. I'm, again, so I fundamentally wouldn't approve it to begin with. However, looking at the line, comparing it to the aerial, it's nonsensical. It doesn't, it's silly. So,
But I think your call kind of in a conundrum, right? Isn't there an
Right.
email that says to come to us first
That's correct.
before you go to the HOA?
I am, but the act of doing so will help me quite a bit to go back to them and say, it's, I've
Mr.
done,
Catania, could
I'm
you
exactly caught in the middle.
maybe reach out to the HOA and tell them that they need to make a decision on this before the board does or something? I don't know.
Give me a contact info.
I believe.
Or
Yeah, work
send it
out
to
some-
Steve will send it to me and I'll find
Yeah.
out exactly.
Now, if you walk in here and say, yeah, you got their approval, they're gonna take care of all the documents, whatever, got that all worked out, then it becomes a non-issue as far as we're concerned, I
I
think.
agree.
Well, I
just-
think I don't know if I'd lump the whole board into that one, but
Well, all right,
I
some
would-
of us.
Well,
I would
this
agree.
makes no sense because you have the wall there.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It
Easement
doesn't-
should follow the wall.
I mean, if I just look at this piece of paper, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna approve this, but if I look at the way this wall is on the air, I'm like, the line makes no sense.
Makes no sense. It doesn't follow any kind of contour.
It certainly doesn't
It's a wall.
follow the contour, it doesn't,
Yeah.
so I don't know why it's drawn that way. So, by all means, we really want to have the homeowner association decide what they want to do with this.
Yeah, I think you should.
And then we can, come back to us and tell us what they said. I hate to put you in the middle,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
we don't want to be the referee for this.
Right.
Yeah, they referenced a specific recommendation from one particular member's lawyer, that it's written that the township should be the one to decide. And he's sort of driving that. That's what brought me here.
yeah, and that's from a lawyer that's before us a lot. So I feel like we're going to waste his time. I
Where's it
mean,
from?
it's from Edelman. I feel like
Oh,
we're going to waste his time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to waste this gentleman's time to go back to the HOA, and the HOA is going to say, our lawyer already said to go to the Board of Supervisors.
All right, well,
Now, I get the
He's been to the
conundrum.
Joe, can you call him, please?
Greg Edelman?
Yeah, Joe, reach out to Greg and find out what's going on here.
That email's in the packet, Joe. It's dated,
End of March.
I think it's the end of March.
yeah, March 23rd.
Put us in this position, for God's sakes.
It's arbitrary.
So what
Yeah,
what-
it's
what- what it would require is
It's arbitrary line.
me to hire a lawyer, him to hire a lawyer, a letter of indemnification to be draft up, me to pay for both sides of that, and then for that to then be brought forward to you. So the idea was perhaps not to go through all of that if the answer would be no at the end anyway. So he was saying, go to the township, get that yes, and then we can go do this.
I'm not seeing that the answer is no here, so I know there's a lot of expense on your part, but we really, you need to get approval from us, you gotta, really, again, from day one, I've always wanted to know, well, what's the homeowner association want to do?
And I think the line, I think we all can agree, at least the two or three of us on this end, is that the line is kind of arbitrary, right? It looks like a sawtooth here. There's no other sawtooths down on either side of this line. So if you just gave the same amount of land you want to take and push it further down that way, you still give the same amount of land for conservation
I would
easement.
just
So it
draw
wouldn't
the
be like
line
you're
straight
getting
against
something
the line.
and losing something.
Just draw
You're giving them the same entrance,
the line like that. and be done.
same amount of property, because you got a retaining wall there already with boulders.
Right.
Yep.
So you'll relay to the homeowner association, Joe's gonna reach out, or solicitor's gonna reach out to Mr. Edelman and
Email him.
figure out what's going on.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
In the packet.
moving on. Item 10.2, consider approving the permanent planting of the plants included with the 16.2, consider approving the permanent planting of the plants included with a pop-up garden. Mr. Nease.
Yes, so I believe you're aware that we had a pop-up garden that was a combination of the EAC. We got a grant to help us get some of the plant material.
It was great.
It was I think it was a great success because not only was it here at the Township building, it also was over in front of the Remax building, part of our Gather in the Circle process, trying to explore what it would look like to potentially have kind of like a pop-up park / garden over in that area, and it was a good opportunity. I believe what we're here tonight looking at is we now have all this plant material. It's actually on the side of the Public Works building. And so instead of having it just sit there and die, what do we do with it, right? How do we plant it? Where do we plant it? I believe there's a recommendation that the EAC would like to put forward. And if I can, I would turn it over to them, let them come up and tell you what their thoughts are, and then go from there.
Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Janet Cravanis. I live at 23 Paper Mill Road. And we're here to talk about a permanent installation of native plants here at the Township building, or in the near the parking lot where people can observe it. This is plants that are already been purchased by a grant that we received from Valley Forge Audubon and Pennsylvania Audubon, to the amount of $3,000. Steve Mastardi was graciously giving us these plants at cost. And we've been watering them to make sure that they survive the heat that occurred while they were on display. But now they need to find permanent homes. And I can't think of a better place than right here outside, where we can support our native plant resolution. If you can remember back to March of 2020, we were here and we gave you.
Our last meeting, I think it was.
It was.
Oh, gosh, you
exactly.
may be bad luck, Janet.
No, it wasn't my fault.
We had the little poster.
Anyway, and this would be an opportunity for anyone coming here to be able to not only see the plants, but the signage that went along with it. I worked very hard on getting the message across as to why these native plants are important. Right. And so I am hopeful that with your support and with George's recommendations, we've already spoken with George. Cindy and I were here before the plants moved back as to where would be the best location. It would not consume the entire area that we had down when it first came here, although many people said, wow, that was such a great place to be able to relax.
Sure.
Right. But if we could start smaller, we would be really happy to be able to bring these native plants here and support the pollinators and the birds and talk about how important our environment is.
Put in my yard too. Steve, do we have any problem with this?
Yeah, I mean, no problems. And just,
Do you need a motion to?
if we do, the only comment I would make, is we're doing that. I just want you to be aware, we're going to need to commit probably some public works time or bring in a landscaper to help us keep up with all of this going forward. So just be aware of that.
Whatever, I think we're all good. It's going to be less grass to cut, right?
Look real nice.
And we are working on a committee of volunteers who are going to be weeding the pollinator garden that's at Drexel Lodge Park. And we've already done that, as a matter of fact. And so Cindy's been working. We'll get a group of people who will come and weed and take care of our native plants here.
We really appreciate all the time and effort, all
I
of
thought
you
it was great that
put
day. I
in,
was
yeah.
down there. I needed a lot of place out there.
And you got three of us to commit to making it our yards.
Your signs,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
My
I should
sign's
go
up. I don't know
again.
if you saw it. You drive
I
by
still
my
owe
house,
Tina the
it's still
$25.
my sign. I still owe you money too.
Do you need a motion or just a?
I mean, if you're in general agreement, then I think we can just move forward. I
Yes.
don't
Yeah,
know
let's
if
get
we
to
need
it.
a
We
formal
did it.
motion,
Those
but
beautiful plants before
Yeah.
they die.
Yep.
okay.
It's awesome.
Okay, so I spoke with George over the weekend about how I will come in and water these plants until they find their homes, because I know I don't want to put extra work in. but I really appreciate it.
I think you can skip, I think
Plenty
you
of
can skip
water.
tomorrow.
I was gonna say, I don't think you need to tomorrow.
Right. Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Fantastic, that's cool. All right, item 16.3, consider approving the partnership with Keystone 10 Million Trees Partnership. Mr. Neese.
Again, this is a EAC initiative, and I'm going to keep my part short and just say the EAC is desiring for us to participate, and I'm gonna, I believe Cindy's speaking to this one, and I'll have her come forward and talk about that.
Sounds great.
Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run. I wanted to bring to the board's attention an opportunity to address the goal that the township has set to plant 1,000 trees by, I think, 2025. This is a really daunting goal, but you are not alone. There are so many organizations, from the Girl Scouts to corporations to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, that are setting really aggressive goals to plant trees because they have such a powerfully positive impact on our environment as well as our communities by helping reduce damage from flooding. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is working very hard to improve the water quality in the Chesapeake Bay, and they want to plant 10 million trees by 2025. It's a pretty, it's in the statement here. Now, and I actually participated with a local nonprofit group, the Delco Anglers themselves requested hundreds of trees, and I helped them plant about 30 out at the Edgemont Country Club. And I discussed this with George to see if he is supportive of this, and he is. It's very different. This is not at all like planting bare root trees. These trees are about this big, and they're about the size of a pencil. And if you look at the pictures that were sent,
Right.
that the stake, each one of them needs a plastic. You can see those are the trees, like there were like 5 of us, and we planted those in a couple hours. So each of these little tiny trees or shrubs needs to get the plastic tube, the stake, a zip tie, a sock, and all of those things are all provided free of charge, simply for the asking. And you can request as many as you want. They come in increments of like 25 or 50. They're all native trees, although they do make a lot of shrubs available too. So what the catch is that you have to go pick them up and bring them back and plant them.
Where do you have to pick them up?
There are about, this is a statewide program. We are not, I'll get to your point, we are not in the high priority area. They rank it by priority. There's like 5 levels. The center of the state is high priority because that's Lancaster County, lots of agriculture, and that actually flows more directly into the Chesapeake Bay. But they do include the Pittsburgh and Philadelphia areas as a lower priority, but the chances are still quite good that we would still get some trees and shrubs. Being a partner, to me, what I see as the ideal vision for the township is that you sign on as a partner, and then you can approach different organizations within the community that might want smaller quantities of trees. They don't want 50 oak trees. They might want 5 oak trees and 5 maples and 5 red buds, but they can't order such small quantities. Like I've already spoken with the leadership of my church, Springton Lake Presbyterian Church, which is right on the corner, and we've lost all kinds of trees due to Claude and his construction, and they are very anxious to replant. So they could take like 50 trees, but they wouldn't want them all of the same species. The man right across the street here who is on the stream, who has no trees along his stream, you could approach private homeowners like that with a list and say, if we collated all these orders, bunched them together, the orders would have to be placed by the end of June, and then the materials would be picked up in August, And then the trees would be picked up. There's all staggered dates because it's such a big effort, like in late September. But to me, this is a way that the township could get some of these little tiny trees you're planting for the long run here, but then also make it available to certain neighbors. You know, you could offer them a free tree if they watch the video on what to do about it. You know, Culbertson Elementary School, I was at a school in Chester on a tour in Westchester, and I think they planted like some amazing number of trees, like 500 trees on their front yard. And it was not that big. They planted very, very densely. So this is kind of a different approach, but to me, it would be a very cost-effective, long-term way to augment what we've been doing with the bare root tree planting.
I think certainly this sounds like a great idea. And we had talked to Mr. Nease about some areas where we could possibly put some in too. I guess logistically, though, I don't want to have to hire another staff member to monitor to get the program going. Is this something that the EAC is going to help us with selling the program and getting the orders and things like that in?
I would imagine that you could get the Shade Tree EAC and Newtown Square and Bloom to help spread the word, approach different organizations to see if they would be interested. They do this twice a year. So, you know, we could start small this fall, see how it goes. And if it goes well, put another order in again in the spring.
I mean, as long as the EAC or some other group like that or combination groups are spearheading the effort, I think it's fine. I mean, as long as we're not driving out to Pittsburgh to pick up trees, I'm sure we can dedicate public works people to send a dump truck out to go get a couple hundred trees.
The public works would definitely have to send a truck out to pick up the materials.
We just got to know where it's
and
going.
and then send a truck out again later to pick up the plant, you know, the actual plants. And then, you know, give them out. I would see that the township itself would only plant a percentage of it.
Sure.
That most would be passed on to other people for them to plant.
I'm sure George has probably plenty of ideas where trees should be planted. So, and we could take some. I mean, if we could get the program out to the residents if they want. I mean, I'll take a tree or two, or like, I'll plant them.
Yeah, they're really tiny, and I can see where people might not want the plastic tube in their front yard for 5 years. But hey, maybe they would, or maybe they would put them in their backyard, especially people like who live along a stream and, you know, want to try to get some forest.
I think in general, people will be very receptive to the program. I just want to make sure that we're not taking on a lot of staff man hours that we don't have budgeted or anything like that. That's all. I want to make sure we've got a volunteer help to help spearhead this, and then we can do the logistics and the legwork and make sure that, you know, we can set up a time where people can come here and get the trees and things like that, or whatever the case may be, you know.
To distribute.
I missed last Monday night. You talked about us becoming a partner. Is there something formal that we have to do that?
I think you just sign on.
Okay.
It's like really easy.
Okay. I didn't know if we need a formal action by the board for that purpose.
You know, I signed myself on as a private individual.
Okay.
But I think you should sign yourself
No,
on
I get that.
as a partner.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't actually commit you to any trees until you place your
Why
order.
don't you just do a
Yeah,
motion?
that's fine.
Yeah, let's do a motion to authorize you to sign on.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
I'll make a motion to authorize the township manager to move forward with the agreement to get into a partnership with the Keystone 10 Main Trees Partnership.
Second that. Motion made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to sign on to the Keystone 10 Million Trees Partnership. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item?
I don't have any questions, but I do just want to say, I mean, the EAC, Cindy and Janet, and the other groups have been doing so much over the last year. I mean, and I think that not only are the residents seeing as much work that both Cindy and Janet are doing, but just even the excitement that we're having talking about the pop-up garden. So I just wanted, I've said this time and time again to both of you individually. I said it time and time again at EAC meetings, but I want to say this at a public meeting as well, that I thank you for everything you guys have been doing. I think that you've really inspired this board, and we've had a lot of fun doing a lot of the different projects. So I appreciate it. I really do. And we have a lot more work to be working on together, but I appreciate this endeavor. and and all the other ones. So thank you.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, motion was made and seconded. Did we vote? All those in
No, we
favor,
didn't vote.
please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Neese, you'll sign this up, right?
I will take care of
Fantastic. We don't want 10 million though, but, you know.
it. Just 2 of them. 2 million of
I was gonna say
it.
just 2 trees.
Item 16.4, consider authorizing the Public Works Director to coordinate the annual salt bid on behalf of 10 Delaware County municipalities.
So moved.
Second.
Which was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 16.4. I think we've done very well with this every year.
We know the
We
drill.
don't need a discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Please pass on to George our thanks for continuing to do this because I think it really helps us out.
It does.
And he's done a great
We
job.
We have never had any shortages. So.
We have, not only have we not had salt shortages, but we've beat the state price. I think the last 4 years, so
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive.
Very good stuff.
George has got to keep up his record.
Yeah, I know pressure that I
Yeah,
put upon him.
right.
Item 16.5, consider authorizing the township manager and or the chairman to sign any documents associated with the recycling grant. Is that the grant you're talking about earlier?
That is the grant, and actually, Mr. Chairman, I looked at the document again this afternoon. It requires all the board signatures, and so if you will pass that along, and so be all the board signatures plus mine.
Okay,
So
we can take the
so
motion.
we'll modify it and make a motion to authorize the township manager to coordinate all the necessary signatures for the document associated with the recycling grant.
So
Second.
moved. A second, sorry.
That's
I
okay.
thought you second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve item 16.5. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Last item under new business is item 16.6. Consider authorizing the staff to create a resolution establishing the Trails and Greenways Committee as well as advertise for respective members. Mr. Neese.
Yeah, so I was speaking actually with Mr. Altieri about this, I believe it was last week, and just a real need to have some folks focus on the trails and greenways in the township. And so it's on the agenda. We had talked about that we would limit it to 5 members. And with that, it would be, people would serve 5-year terms on that. And if the board is in agreement, the real piece tonight is that we would move forward, getting you a resolution for you to take action on at the 28th meeting for the resolution. And then on the 12th of July, not January, July, we will ask for action we'll hopefully have had enough time to get enough people responding who are interested, and you could do your interviews and then appoint the 5-member board.
Yeah, so I mean, that's exactly right. I think it was Supervisor Russo and I were talking again about the work that the EAC and Parks and Rec were doing, and about how they have been doing so much in the township, but that there is still a need for us to also address what's going on in regards to the trail network here. So spoke to Bruce Killen from the EAC, spoke to Wade Pollard from Parks and Rec to make sure that we weren't going to have another committee that's kind of bleed into each other. So the EAC is sending me essentially their parameters of what they see as their ownership and their ownership only. Parks and Rec has already sent me what they see as their ownership. And then, Steve and I will draft this resolution to be kind of the third rail. So none of them touch this. And it's the biggest impetus will be to implement the Greenways Master Plan that we have. It's a plan that residents worked on. We approved it last year. And so now it's just kind of sitting there. And with EAC and Parks and Rec doing so much already, we wanted to have one committee that was kind of designated to just implementing that plan, as well as moving forward on some of the other initiatives. So, on the last one to say another committee, right, another government kind of thing, but I think this is needed. It's the only way to really move forward. So, I will do the motion to consider authorizing the staff to create a resolution establishing the Trails and Greenways Committee, as well as advertise for respective members.
Second.
This was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 16.5. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of 16.6, I'm sorry. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Altieri, you're volunteering to be the liaison to this committee too?
And Mr. Russo is another liaison since he seconded.
We have nothing listed under old business. Under item 18, resolutions and legislative action, we have one resolution to amend our township fee schedule. Briefly, Mr. Nease, what's
So
the issue?
one of the things that's come up is that there are people who have requested to come back before the zoning hearing board to extend a zoning
Decision?
a decision. And typically, we don't have any fee attached to that. And because of that, right now, they're either paying nothing or they should be paying the whole amount, which
Right.
is 800 and 2,000. So we recommended, and I'm going to get it wrong, is it 200 and 400? So 200 for a resident piece, and then 400 for a commercial. And the idea being there, we have to advertise again, and so we're just trying to again cover the basic cost.
That's fine. That's fair. I think it's good.
Okay, Township of Newtown, Resolution 2021-21, 2021 fee schedule, resolution to approve township fee schedule. Whereas from time to time, the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown, Delaware County, Pennsylvania reviews and revises various fees for services provided by the township. Now therefore, in consideration of the above, the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown does hereby resolve as follows. 1, the Township of Newtown comprehensive fee schedule attached to this resolution as Exhibit A is approved. 2, the Township Administration is directed to make this fee schedule available to the public and charge fees for services consistent therewith. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2021, and that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve resolution 2021-21, the 2021 fee schedule amendment. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no additional business listed. Would any board member like to make a comment? Moving on, we are at the public comment section. If there's any members of the public comment public that would like to make a comment on something that's not on the agenda, please step forward and be heard. Seeing none, we will be in adjournment. I'd like to wish everybody happy Flag Day and remind everybody our next meeting is Monday, June 28th. Thank you for attending and stay dry.
See you soon.